Hey guys, Chelsea from Attention to Details, and I know I sound like a man. I actually have laryngitis. My allergies are kicking my butt right now, but that doesn't mean that I still don't have work to do. I'm actually working on this Honda CR-V today in the shop. We're getting it ready for a 12-month coating. I did a video recently with the McKees 37 mega box giveaway, which, by the way, we'd reached 15,000 subscribers yesterday. And so at the end of this video, we're going to be announcing the winner of the mega box from McKees 37 with some of my favorites. So make sure you guys stay tuned, or you can just completely bypass this video and go straight to the end if you want. But we're going to announce the winner at the end of this video. But one of the ways to enter for that giveaway was for you guys, obviously, to subscribe, but to comment down below. And I'd asked you guys to kind of share one of two things. One, like if you could go back in time and give your younger self some advice, what would it be? A lot of you guys said the same thing, that you would go back and tell your younger self, don't be afraid to get into detailing, that it is something that can actually be fun. It can be something that gives you a fulfilled life, but it can be kind of a profitable journey. And so don't be afraid and to take that step and to take that risk. And that was really cool to see that a majority of you within this community all feel the same way. And a lot of you also, the second thing that I asked was that you share kind of what is your biggest hurdle when it comes to detailing. And a lot of you had the same issue, is that you are intimidated by the idea of paint correction or doing some sort of polishing on vehicles. And so I thought that I would kind of take a moment and share with you guys. I want to try to be a little bit more intentional with this over the next couple videos, or when I have polishing, to kind of share with you guys my thought process on how I approach some of the vehicles that I'm working on, so that maybe you guys can kind of talk yourselves to the point where it's really not as intimidating as you may think that it is. And so let me kind of share with you the vehicle, what we're working on, and how I'm approaching it, what I'm doing, and just kind of talk you through some of the basics for paint correction, so that way you can maybe do this on your own vehicles or for customers in the future. So when it comes to doing paint corrections, obviously prep is your number one key. That is going to ensure that you get maximum results for, one, your polishing step, and also for your protection. So first we did a wash, we did a decontamination clay bar treatment. Now this is a newer vehicle, I didn't have to go all full out. I just did a wash with my clay towel after I kind of did my initial wash, rinsed everything off. I didn't even do a chemical decon. It really didn't need it. Like I said, this is a new vehicle. I wasn't going to go overkill. If it is a brand new vehicle and you feel like you don't need to do a clay bar treatment, you can kind of do either a chemical decon, clay bar treatment. It really is up to you. I don't feel like you have to do both every single time. You can use your judgment. White cars, it's going to show a lot more if you need to do a chemical decon, but in this moment, we just did a clay towel treatment because we are going to be polishing. So even if there is any sort of residual unseen contaminants, when we do our polish step, it's going to remove that. Polishing actually can remove some of the light bonded contaminants on a vehicle. And so in this moment, I didn't feel like I needed to do a chemical decon. Rinsed everything, dried it off. We have, some drip marks where water dripped through, but you want to make sure if you have any sort of water, freestanding water in your tighter spaces, that you blow that out with forced air. So now we're moving on to our polish phase. When it comes to doing your test spot, this is where some people get overwhelmed because the market is absolutely saturated. So when it comes to doing paint corrections, obviously I'm not going to expect all of you to go out and purchase every single product that I have in my arsenal. A lot of these I've had for years. I've tried a couple times. Maybe I'm not a fan of it, or maybe I find something better, but I just keep it just on the off chance that I might need it one of these days. A lot of the ones that you see like closer to the front are some of more of my favorites that I have worked with a lot more and become more comfortable with. I would say that a majority of you want to start off offering more paint enhancements. Now, what is a paint enhancement versus paint correction? I would consider a paint enhancement where you're really going for maybe like 10 to 25 paint correction. You might get more, but you're not really looking to remove every single swirl and scratch from the vehicle. You're just wanting to kind of remove some of the major swirls, maybe from washing and drying it improperly. You're not chasing paint perfection. You're not chasing deeper scratches. And then you want to add some sort of protection on there for the customer. Typically, a paint enhancement is something that you can do almost yearly on a vehicle because, again, you're not being super aggressive on the clear coat. You're just kind of refining it, adding some nice polish, and then putting good protection down. So typically, I will start with either 3D Speed or an Angel Wax Enigma all-in-one based on the correction and also the hardness of the paint. For some of your newer vehicles or like maybe soft medium paint and you use the purple polishing pad from 3D, this is going to give you phenomenal results every time. If you have harder paint that maybe 3D Speed isn't going to do a whole lot for it, that's where I will use something like an Angel Wax Enigma all-in-one because this is more of a medium polish. It corrects, I would say, touch more aggressively, but it finishes down really nice. I would say that this finishes down a little bit better. So both of these have fillers within them, which means they're going to help fill in some of the finer swirls and scratches on the vehicle. It's not permanent, it's just temporary. Over time, as you wash the vehicle, the fillers will kind of dissipate. But based on the level of pad that you choose, you can actually do decent correction with them. I know some people have scoffed in the past saying 3D Speed doesn't correct, but if you pair it with the right pad, it can correct, but maybe not as aggressively as more of a dedicated polish or compound. But that is a great place to start for a lot of you beginners that are wanting to offer paint enhancements or maybe to work on your own vehicles. You really cannot do damage with these products. This one is extremely sun friendly. Even if you get it on your trim, it's not going to stain it. And then you could use something like a Griot's 3-in-1 ceramic wax. It has more of a ceramic base to it. You can use that for either one of these, or you can use just more of a dedicated like polymer sealant with 3D Speed. It's going to play really nicely with that. The protection that's within these is not very long term, maybe 1 or 2 months at best. So that's why I always still top it with something afterwards. But I think of it as like a primer for the protection that I'm putting on after. So that's where I would say a majority of you would want to start. Get comfortable with those products. You're going to love this one. I guarantee it. And it's still one of my favorites to use, especially if a customer adds on like a quick paint enhancement and I have maybe only 2 hours. I can get around a vehicle super fast with this, and the customer is just absolutely blown away by the end results. But they could do that every year because I'm not being overly aggressive on their clear coat. Now, if you want to start offering more ceramic coatings, you don't want to use an all-in-one that has protection in it. You want a dedicated product that has no protection in it whatsoever. And so that's where I would tell you guys, find a system and become comfortable with it. Know what they are capable of doing. So when I say a system, that's where you want to use something. And I'm not saying you have to choose these ones. These are some of the ones that I've used the most and I'm most comfortable with. Oberk, I really like the fact that they have color-coded pads to go with this, and they're really trying to simplify polishing for a lot of their owners. And these are fantastic for majority of vehicles that you encounter. If you have harder paint or more severely swirled paint, you start off with number 1 and the pad that corresponds with that. If you have softer paint, then you could probably just start with this and maybe the orange pad or even the red pad. But on a newer vehicle that needs just a quick enhancement, you could get by with just their polish, do your panel prep wipe, and coat. Same with the Jescar system. You could start off with fine polish for a newer vehicle or something that doesn't need a whole lot of correction, and that be sufficient. Your typical daily driver that maybe it has some more love marks, maybe it has some more aggressive swirls. Start off with the medium polish, and that may be all you need. That could be a great one step in and of itself. If you have harder paint, or maybe you have more severe swirls and scratches, you may need to use the correcting compound. But if you have micro marring, then you might need to finish up with the fine polish. And so that's where, if you're going to buy a system, I would say buy the whole system, because you never know from one vehicle to the next how it's going to respond, and also with the pad choice you choose, how it's going to respond. Again, Sonex, they have their perfect finish or their cut and finish. You can use this for a lot of softer paints. It's going to finish down beautifully. But if you do a heavier correction and you need to finish down, you may need to get the perfect finish. Again, Kochchemi, their M302 or F601. These are great products to have. I would say perfect for newer vehicles. This is more for your average daily driver where you just need to do a quick touch up and get around a vehicle. You want a little bit more correction, but still finish down nice. They do have a more aggressive compound, but typically for daily drivers, these may be all that you need based on the severe swirls. Now, if you have harder paints or medium paints that are more severely swirled, this is one of my favorites right here. It does decent correction, finishes down really well, very easy on, easy off. I use this with the Rupes Yellow Foam Pad for probably 75% of the vehicles that I see, and it gives me great results. But if I have harder paint, that's where I will use something more like a Detail Addicts Platinum Hybrid Polish or even the Last Cut Compounding Glaze. And in fact, they even have their new Diamond Polish, which is a touch more aggressive than the Platinum. So products like this that are more boutique style products, they can do a phenomenal job of giving you a one step for medium to harder paints, or maybe if they are more severely swirled. I wouldn't say that these would work for extremely soft paints. They may do too much correction and leave some micromarring or haze left behind. And so that's where you can go on different forums. You can even Google the vehicle, year, make, model, the color, even just type what is the paint hardness, and you will see a lot of forums where they can discuss things like that. Now, when it comes to pad selection, this is where a lot of you get really overwhelmed. I'm going to try to simplify this as much as I can in a short period of time. This is your black finishing polish. This is where I would say is dedicated more for wax application, but there are some super soft paints that you may need to actually use this to finish down with, but that is rare. I typically will use that for applying a finishing wax or a product that I just want to kind of breeze through. This is where I would typically start for most vehicles when I'm starting with the least aggressive. This is your white polishing pad. There are a majority of newer vehicles that this may be all I need. Paints are getting softer and more finicky. So between these two pads, this may be all I need for a majority of vehicles. Now, when you get into more severe swirls, I would say like medium swirls, if they go through the car wash, it's maybe 2 or 3 years old. That's where you can use products like this. This is the 3D Light Purple Polishing Pad. You can pair this with 3D1. And it'll be a fantastic product to give you, I would say, 25 to 50% correction, finish down beautifully, and it'll do a great job. Same with the orange foam pad, the Rupes Yellow Foam Pad, even the blue LC pad. This is going to be a touch more correction than the yellow pad. Orange, obviously, is probably great for all-in-ones or for paint enhancements, same as this one. But a majority of the time, this is the pad that I'm using right here. I love the Rupes Yellow Foam Pad. It is a touch more correction than the orange, but finishes down like a white polishing pad. So they can be expensive. That's why I like to use a pad washer to not necessarily have to buy 20 at a time, but I've bought enough over the years that I have about 20. It's more than enough to do vehicles, but I've been actually enjoying these as well. They're, I would say, a little bit more aggressive with correction, and I would say that this finishes down a touch better, but the blue foam pads for medium paints or harder paints are great for like medium polishes for that sweet spot. This is the 3D dark purple polishing pad. It's going to be a touch more, I would say it's equivalent to the blue here. I just really have been enjoying the 3D pads because they're very smooth on the paint. They hold up pretty well. But as far as aggressiveness, I would say it's going to go up in this. And then we have our Meguiar's Maroon Foam Pad. I started out using these and found that I was really kind of being a little bit overly aggressive on some newer vehicles. So this is what I would dedicate more for like heavy correction. When paired with a medium polish or a correcting compound, it does a really nice job. But it can be a touch aggressive on softer paints or something where you're not necessarily needing to be super aggressive. And then this is the gray foam. I would say this is the most aggressive foam pad. It's very stiff. You're going to keep a lot of your product more on the face of the pad versus kind of being worked into it and being absorbed. But they're not as pliable, not as forgiving for around your tight edges and corners. And so I typically don't use these a lot. If I find that I need heavy correction, I'm going to end up going more up here. This is like a microfiber all-in-one pad. This is great with the Oberk system. This is one of their pads for the cut. They also have one for their polish. They also have foam pads as well. Then this is the Eurofiber 50/50. Now, all of these products here, if you're using on soft paint or finicky paint, are more than likely going to leave micromarring, which is like microscopic little scratches. It's going to make the paint kind of look hazy, and you may need to finish up with a polishing pad to kind of refine it down. The Eurofiber 50/50, if you have medium paint or hard paint,
it may not micromar at all and finish down beautifully. That's why it's kind of a 50-50. It's 50-50 correction and 50-50 finishing down. But on some soft paints, it will still mar. This is the Meguiar's microfiber. Fantastic with their D300. If you have a Corvette and you need to do heavy correction, this is a fantastic pad. D300, then finish up with D302. You're going to have fantastic results. The Rupes yellow foam polishing pad. This is going to kind of transform your DA polisher and make it act like a rotary as far as doing quick correction, but it can finish down really well on some medium to hard paints. Softer paints, it's still going to micromar, be aggressive, but if you have heavy swirls and scratches, I would say this is the products you're going to want to consider to have in your arsenal, but this finishes down almost beautifully on medium to hard paints. Now, these are more of your wool pads that are for heavy correction. This one finishes as well. Rupes has a diamond wool polishing or a compound pad. This is going to do some heavy correction, but even on some hard paints, I've actually had it micromar that I had to finish down with a more medium pad because even the swirls were the micromarring was so severe that even a polishing pad didn't touch it. So that's just where you need to have a couple pads in your arsenal. If you have a pad washer, you don't necessarily have to buy 10, 15 of every pad. You can have 2 or 3 and just wash them if you need to reuse them. So it's a great pad washer is a great tool to have if you're wanting to dip into correcting vehicles, but you don't want to necessarily invest in tons of money in pads. If you find ones that you like, then you can invest in them more over time, but get comfortable with your pads. Learn what they're capable of doing. Learn what vehicles they are more appropriate for. I rarely will use wool pads, I'll be honest with you. I don't see a lot of vehicles that need 100% perfection or really have that deep of defects. It's very rare that I will use these pads. This is a low lint pad from Lake Country. This is their purple low lint pad. They're still going to lint. They're still going to shed stuff. Not as much as like what you would experience with a rotary though. But what's nice about these is they help keep the panels cooler, so there's less risk of burning it. These are very pliable, nice to get into tight corners. It's going to make your dual action polisher act like a rotary, majority of these. You can still do a little bit of damage if you sit on one spot for too long, but that's just where common sense comes into play. If you are moving your hand at a moderate speed, which a majority of vehicles that I see, I'm rarely sitting, 1 inch per second where I'm moving that slow. I keep my arm at a medium speed. If I have a deep scratch on a panel, I may go over it a couple times, kind of like a scrubbing action, but I'm not just sitting on the paint. That's where you come into problems. So like I said, common sense needs to come into play. Now, let's first talk about polishers. Which one are you going to choose? And that can be overwhelming. There's a lot of really affordable, user-friendly products on the market. I know a lot of people seem to gravitate towards the Amazon packages. Harbor Freight has some great polishers. I'm going to put the link down below for some that I would recommend. My favorite personally that I started out with was the Griot's Garage, their GG6. They're getting harder to find. You can still find some at Pep Boys or Advanced Auto. Extremely user-friendly. They have their new G9, which again, I would say is perfect for a beginner. If you're just wanting to get comfortable with the feel of a polisher, the G9 is very ergonomic, lightweight. You really can't do any damage to it. The only issue that I have sometimes with it is that on certain surfaces or angles, it can stall, and you may not know how to kind of push through that. If you increase the speed and kind of put a mark on the back of your backing plate, you can make sure that it's oscillating perfectly. But if you don't see that spinning, then you know that you need to kind of either up your speed or kind of change your angle. The G9 can be a little finicky. That's why I use my Griot's G15 long throw polisher. I wouldn't necessarily say that that's where you want to start, but it's not going to damage anything. It can be, if you have softer paints or you don't need as much aggression, the larger the throw, the more aggressive the polisher is going to be as far as the more force, because obviously it's got a larger motor and throw behind it. GG6 is that sweet spot. It's like an 8mm throw. The G9 is a 9mm throw. Then you have a 15mm long throw or 21mm long throw. Then you get into like the forced rotations, like the Flex 3401, your Rupes. Those are more, I would say, professionally geared devices. Then you have your rotaries that a lot of the OGs within the detailing community, they've mastered that. They can finish down flawlessly. But I would say majority of beginners, you know, the G9 or the G15 is going to be a great device for you to pick up, or like the Harbor Freight polishers. Like I said, I'm going to put the link down below. I haven't purchased every single polisher, tried every single polisher. I know ShineMate makes some, Max Shine makes some. There's a lot that you can pick up, and it can get overwhelming. Brian Spittler from Apex Detail has done numerous videos on polishers. I'm going to actually put one of his videos down below. He is a mentor of mine within the community, and he's done extensive ones, and he has certain ones that he recommends. Now, when it comes to starting out, there's some tools that I would recommend that you get if you are wanting to ensure that you don't do damage to a vehicle. Again, it's really hard to damage a vehicle nowadays with polishers. Really, the only way that you're going to damage a vehicle is if you actually just like drop the polisher on the vehicle. It's very hard nowadays unless you actually come in and just sit, then you're going to start to do damage. The average time that I'm working my way around the vehicle, I'm going to be moving around this clip. I'm not spending a whole lot of time. You know, I know that a lot of people will say standard rule of thumb, if you're wanting paint perfection, 1 inch per second. And even then, you're not going to do damage. Now, if you have a swirl or scratch and you just sit, you might eventually overheat it, cause swelling, maybe cause a little bit of issues. I like to kind of come in and kind of scrub swirls and scratches, so that way I'm not letting all that heat sit on there, I'm not swelling it, I'm not overheating my pad, and then I'll move on. And then I'll come back and maybe revisit that swirl or scratch. There was actually a video, and I'm going to put it down below for those of you that maybe you want to see firsthand what it takes to burn through clear coat. Over at the Rag Company, the folks over there with Yvonne LaCroix, they did an experiment with a dual action polisher, a forced rotation polisher, and a rotary to see how quickly or how long it took to burn through paint. And I was shocked that it took as long as it did for them to burn through paint. And they were just sitting. So a video like that would be great for a lot of you to kind of really see that it takes a lot to burn through paint. But that's also where you need something like a paint thickness gauge. Now, this is just a cheapy one that I got from Amazon. It's not going to be 100% exact, but it's going to give me at least enough of a variable for me to know how much paint I have to work with. So you can switch between microns or mils. So I can come in here. We're going to actually switch it to mils. So I have 3.83 mils here, 4.22 here, 4.56 here, 3.91 here. So once you start getting to like the threes, and that's 4.06, like it changes from spot to spot. It's not going to be exact. And you can calibrate this. They have like discs that they actually provide with the container that can help you calibrate it if you need to. I don't use it as an exact science. If you're wanting an exact science, I can put one down below that you can pick up over at the Car Supplies Warehouse. It's actually a digital one that you can read it off of your phone. It's super high tech and fancy. That's probably the next one that I'm going to be investing in. This was a great launching point for me when it comes to paint thickness gauge. But if you're wanting to know how aggressive or non-aggressive to be on paint, this is a great tool to have in your arsenal. So that way I know if I'm getting down to like 3.2, 3.1, 3, I need to be very mindful of how long I'm sitting on the paint, what product I'm using, what pad I'm using. I know that this is a lot to kind of process, and hopefully this kind of gives you a more simplified view of how I would approach it. So another tool to consider when you're doing paint correction beyond a paint thickness gauge in your polisher is accurate lighting. Lighting is key. If you can't see a swirl, you can't fix the swirl. And so that's where I would recommend you have some basics. Now, this is kind of just a standard headlight lamp. This is great for one, it's very fashionable, and two, when you're doing paint correction and polishing, it's going to help you be able to see through your polish to see if you got the swirls and scratches out. Obviously, mine has an adjustable one. It's really nice. I use this a lot for interiors as well in the winter. Even has a party mode. Sorry, that's probably really bright. Another one that I really enjoy is the Astro 50 SL Max. I've done videos on these in the past. You can adjust kind of the temperature of it from more of a cooler to a warmer tone. It also great for if you have lighter colored vehicles, darker colored vehicles. It's adjustable, got a magnetic base. You can even tilt it, connect it to kind of a table or a bench that you have, and keep it stationary. But I like to keep this in my seat that I work on, and that's another one as well, having a really good adjustable seat. You can see I can adjust here. I'll put the link for the seat that I have down below. It's really comfortable, very agile. The only issue I have is that on some larger vehicles it's not quite tall enough, but that's just where I stand. The other two things that I purchased that I think were very worthwhile investments was having mounted lighting system. Now this is the Lutech 9000. Obviously it's 9,000 lumens. I picked this up off of Amazon. I really enjoy it. There are some times though that it's actually too bright, and so that's where I actually picked this up. This is a lighting system. I did a video on it recently, but I picked this up over at Car Supplies Warehouse. This is one of the best investments I ever made when it comes to paint correction, to be able to see accurately. There were some times that I had too much light with the Lutech, that when I would pull a vehicle out into the daylight, which daylight is the best way to inspect a vehicle, that I would pull it out into the daylight and actually see that there was a haze or micromarring that I had missed because I had too much lighting and it was too bright. And so what's nice about this is it actually comes with a remote that makes it adjustable. So I can cool it down, I can make it brighter, I can make it cooler, or I can make it warmer. And so in comparison to the Lutech, to the Car Supplies Warehouse lighting system, this was definitely a worthwhile investment, and one that has paid for itself time and time again because I didn't miss something and then have to redo it later on. It saves a lot of time, and time is money. So hopefully that gives you guys some better insight on tools, from the paint thickness gauge to the polisher to the lighting, even having a comfortable seat. It can be physically fatiguing, and so having a comfortable seat to work in. I know there's some that are super expensive, but this one I've been enjoying, and ask my kids, they love it because they race across the garage or the driveway with it, and I'm like, okay, that's not like $150 seat that you're just playing with, but whatever, it's fine. That's fine. It's good. Another key element to keep in mind is having quality microfibers. You could have phenomenal paint correction, but if you have crappy microfibers, you're going to either reintroduce scratches to the paint or have lint everywhere. So that's where I'm going to say invest a little bit of money and make sure you are buying premium quality microfibers. Autofiber and the Rag Company are two of my favorite brands when it comes to producing top-notch products that are going to perform the way they need to, but be gentle enough on your paint. It can be an investment, but if you launder them properly, they're going to last you a long time. We just got done doing this half of the panel, and I will typically divide panels in half when they're a little bit larger like this. I'm not taping off my trim because I'm kind of avoiding those lower areas, but I'm also using products that aren't prone to staining them. I'm being very mindful of how close I get to them with my pad. If we had some heavy swirls and scratches, especially the lower panels, maybe an older vehicle, then I would tape off and maybe even use a 1-inch polisher to get in those tighter spaces a little bit better, just because when you've got really bad scratches along trim pieces, even if you were to kind of come in close with your pad, you're still going to end up doing a little bit more damage to the trim. So when we are really needing to do heavy correction on these tighter spaces, I will use a nano polisher, and I have a couple in my arsenal to utilize, but they're not something that I use frequently enough. And this paint is actually really good condition. You can see over here we just got some very light love marks. Over here, when we come to our other panel, you can see like the back door, we've got a little bit more swirls and scratches. So again, we need to do some light correction, but nothing major. When it comes to priming our pad, you could see I used this pad already for this one pad. I didn't have a whole lot of product on it. You don't want to oversaturate with product. I'm putting essentially like 4 pea-sized drops on my pad. It's already primed. We're going to kiss it out all over the panel, so that way we have enough product to use within our space. And then we're going to start at speed 2 and then increase to about speed 4.5. Now when it comes to door handles and things like that, you have to be very careful, because if I were to come in here and try to get in tight, my backing plate is going to hit and I could potentially actually damage the painted pieces here.
And so if they're not too bad, you can just put a little bit of polish on a microfiber and kind of rub, or you can use kind of a nano tool. Those are really not bad at all. A finger polish with a microfiber is going to be more than sufficient. But you can come in here, kiss this out. Have a lot of lubrication within it, gives you extended work time, but it definitely needs a good panel wipe after. We're actually going to do a second round around the vehicle when we are all done, just so that way if we get any dust in the meantime. That turned out beautiful. See our finished panel on a newer vehicle. It doesn't have a lot of heavy swirls and scratches. That polish is all we need. It looks perfect. Again, this isn't bad. We could potentially just coat over top of this, but there was some protection there, so I needed to do a quick polish to remove it because my strip wash didn't weaken it. But it's essentially as easy as that. You can see when we did our finger polish, we got all of the fine scratches from behind the door handle. That's all that was really needed in this moment. Now, I didn't polish right here because my polisher actually couldn't fit, but the paint is not bad there. You could do a hand polish if you needed to do in some of your tighter spaces, but essentially we're just going to take what we did here and just duplicate that on every panel. I always start on hood, roof, and then I will start in one corner and work my way around the vehicle and divide larger panels into two, but some of your smaller panels, that can be one whole panel. You can kind of divide it by body lines, so that way you work consistently and cleanly around the vehicle. But don't overthink it. Have fun. Take your time, put on some fun music, grab a drink, and have fun with the process. So you can see we've already worked our way around the right side. We're just going to continue this process around the rest of the vehicle. You can see I have my license plate off, so that way when I polish, I'm not going to potentially damage my pads, and also I can polish and coat behind that. But we are polishing and doing our panel prep all at once. That's just going to give us a little bit more efficiency. And because we had some heavier swirls on the lower panels back here, I actually did add 2 drops of the Papa Cut diminishing compound and then 2 drops of the finishing polish. So that way I could have a little bit more correction, but we still finish down really well. That's another trick to kind of utilize with 2 drops compound, 2 drops polish. It kind of makes it a 1.5 step. It's a really nice way to give you a little bit more correction if your polish isn't giving you what you're looking for. But you can see we've got fantastic results. I'm able to do this entire vehicle probably about an hour. I've done my panel prep wipe. I could essentially do another one just for efficiency and then add the ceramic spray coating in probably 30 minutes. And this is a quick and easy product and service to be able to use for customers. It's going to be profitable for me and affordable for them. So I'm going to actually put the link for these products down below for those of you that are looking for a great system
to use for customers that is very easy on, easy off, low dust to almost no dust. This is very user-friendly products. Aaron did a phenomenal job developing these. I'm very impressed. I've been using them more and more. I feel like Immortal has become my go-to upsell for a lot of customers because it keeps it affordable for them. I can apply it in 30 minutes. I can get 10 to 12 vehicles with one bottle, so it's really affordable for me to offer this. So this is a great option, I think, for those that want to just kind of get into the world of ceramic spray coatings or have something quick and easy to apply. 4 to 6 hour cure time. We do have rain kind of coming in the horizon. So the fact that I can get this applied and the customer can pick it up later on tonight, no issues with the coating whatsoever. Even use Titan kind of as a quick topper before they sell it for even more gloss and slickness. I'll show you the finished results when we're all done for those that want to consider this system for themselves. But hopefully this gives you the visual, the tips, and the practicality to be able to take everything and use it on your own vehicles or for your customers. So get out there, get over your fear, and go have fun. Alright guys, we're going to keep moving. We'll show you the finished result in a minute, so stay tuned. And then we're going to announce the winner for the McKees 37 Megabox giveaway. Alright guys, we are all done with the Honda CR-V. We've applied our Immortal spray coating, and it is the end of the video. Finally, I know this is the world's longest video, or at least my longest video to date. There was just so much information that hopefully now you are so motivated that you're going to get off your keister, you're going to grab your polisher, your pat, and you're going to get out there and go make something shiny. But the time has come for us to announce the winner of the McKees 37 Megabox giveaway is JCE from South Florida. We had over 135 entries, and we did a random number generator, and you were the lucky winner. I'm going to put your comment somewhere around this area, and you need to get in touch with me. You can either email me or shoot me a text. My number is on my website, a2dlancaster.com. Get in touch, and we'll get these products sent over to you. I hope you enjoy. I hope they can take your detailing passion to the next level. Let me know what you think. But thank you guys for all of you who entered. Thank you for all of you who have liked, who have commented, even if you've disliked. I know this was a longer video. You probably dozed off around the 20-minute mark. But for those of you that stuck around and watched to the very end, hopefully this was able to kind of help you conquer that fear of polishing a vehicle and take the next steps to just grab your polisher and get at it. This can be an extremely profitable career or just a fun therapeutic process for many, and it doesn't need to be scary or intimidating. So let me know if you have any questions, if you have any comments, but get out there, go have fun, and we'll see you in the next detail.